Other than another installment of Revelation tells us the war has already been decided. We all know Jesus has already won the war, so anyway, there's no reason to explain that one all over again. But what we're going to do, and I got to tell you, when I was preparing, we're seeing prophecy fulfilled in front of our eyes every single day, but when you do something and like you're preparing for a lesson on Revelation 17, and then all of a sudden you see a fulfillment of this revelation in front of your eyes on a YouTube channel of all things, it kind of catches your attention. So there's a couple of things about Revelation 17 that you really got to pay attention to. One thing is we've got to really start paying attention to the repetition in here. Everybody wants to identify all these symbols, but they don't pay attention to how somebody's words are repeated. We got great prostitute over here, and then we've got the mother of all prostitutes, so that's being repeated, and we've got the mystery of the woman, and it goes on and repeats as it goes throughout this entire chapter. The water where the prostitute is ruling, there's another one. And so the Bible tells us itself exactly what we got to watch out for, and they're going to hate the prostitute. Well, okay, so we got to look for something happening in real life that actually fulfills all these things that are happening, and all these keywords, and how all of these things fit together. Now, as I was preparing for this, I'm looking at it, and they're talking about prostitution and all that stuff. What pops up on YouTube? But Liberal Hive Mind. I don't know if any of you watched him. You should watch his channel. I'll tell you, I took little clips out of his video that we're going to review. But watch the entire video. Not only do we have this open border, not only do we have Chicago that's right now installing state-owned stores just like North Korea, but we actually have a representative in New York that's saying there's nothing wrong with prostitution. It's these immigrants are coming over and there's nothing else for them to do, so they're turning to prostitution to make a living, and too bad, the law doesn't have any way of going after the people that are controlling these women, forcing them to prostitution, human trafficking, blah, 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 a little bit. I mean, she goes through and tries to justify it like it's okay. So it's enough talk for me. I could go on for an hour, but let's take a look at these videos, and then, like I said, go back, review the whole video, and then we're going to go back and take a look at this Revelation 17 line by line, and then we're going to take a look at one key word in the last sentence in this chapter that's going to blow your mind away, because it has been approved beyond any shadow of a doubt that God saw all of this coming, and he knew exactly where it was coming from, and he knew who is responsible long before it even happened. So let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Mostly at southern borders, but we know that it's been shipped to New York City, and they're reaching kind of like a breaking point, and so it's basically all you see when you turn on the TV in the city when it comes to local news. So here's a local Fox 5 news clip with a New York Democrat politician. Just take a look.
And in your neighborhood, you've seen a big influx of human trafficking. Yeah. Women on the street, children on the street. What's going on? What can you do about that?
Right. So for folks at home, I represent the neighborhoods of Jackson Heights, Corona, East Elmhurst, that area where I was born and raised. I'm Colombian, the daughter of Colombian immigrants, like many of the migrants, actually. So we naturally attracted a lot of these new families, and what we're seeing, especially along Roosevelt Avenue, is a lot of survival work, right? So we see street vending, we see people waiting to be picked up by construction contractors as day laborers, we see sex workers. We see all sorts of things that people have to do in order to survive. That's why we call it survival work. And while there is human trafficking, the law, unfortunately, does not help distinguish between those who are who are trafficked and who are not, for us to actually be able to find those bad guys and catch them. So we want to be very careful. We, of course, are not looking necessarily to criminalize people, but we do want them to work within the regulations and within the law as much as possible.
Have you ever heard anybody so nonchalantly talk about human smuggling and trafficking? You know, this is where the left loses me. It's the lack of nuance, the inability to not be able to differentiate between two different concepts. You know, leftists want to seem woke and progressive, female empowerment, yada yada, and for them, I mean, supporting sex work for some reason goes hand in hand with femininity. I can't imagine anybody listening to that and not being totally disgusted. You know, and it really shows who the true compassionate people are. Because leftists love to pretend that they're compassionate when it comes to immigration. Does that seem like compassion to you? Enabling a system that victimizes young girls in such a manner? That overlooks it and views it as just part of the immigration process? I mean, I cannot associate myself with a political side that even comes close to even resembling anything close to what we just witnessed and heard. Because when is a norm, I mean, we're never going to be able to end these types of despicable criminal actions and enterprises, absolutely, but we certainly should be trying to do at least something to impede these cartels, to impede these human smugglers, and most importantly, to save these young souls who are being abused and taken advantage of in the most awful way you could imagine. Yet all we see from these Democrats is a normalization. It is normal. This stuff is normal. There is nothing normal about any of it. Not only is it normal to them, but it's righteous, it's the right thing to do, it's virtuous, and we should do more of it. Which is...
You know, sometimes we see this stuff going on, and we can't believe our eyes, we can't believe what we're seeing, we think, is there something wrong with me? Am I the only one in the world that sees this? So, you know, thank you, liberal hive mind. You're kind of telling us that we're not the only people that are seeing this going on and saying, no, that's not right. You know, I mean, realistically, these kids coming over, they're someone's children. You know, no one wants to see their daughter go into a life of prostitution, but who's controlling these people? Who's behind it? So we're going to take a look at Revelation 17. We're going to go through it line by line, and we're going to look and we're going to just concentrate on what fits in with what we're seeing today. One of the seven angels who had poured out the seven bowls came over and spoke to me. Come with me, he said, and I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the great prostitute who rules over many waters. Now, he refers to this woman as the great prostitute right away. So there's no doubt about it. Usually, when an angel or some being in heaven sees John is confused because he just saw a vision and he can't really understand what's going on. But one of the things we really got to do is we got to back up and see what vision was John actually seeing. But this doesn't start out with a connecting word. You know, bringing it back to chapter 16, but it doesn't hurt to take a look and see how chapter 16 ended. The seventh angel poured out of his bowl in the air, and a mighty shout came from the throne and the temple, saying, "It is finished." So this is the thunder and the lightning and the earthquake, and the hailstones, about 75 pounds, fell out of the sky on the people, and they cursed God because of a terrible plague of the hailstorm. So John just saw that vision. Now this angel comes over and starts talking to John. In most cases, an angel comes and talks to John and backs John up to, you know, history he's familiar with or something in his own time, and that's why people have trouble understanding Revelation, because when the angel comes and talks to John, the angel starts at another point in Earth's history. So you got to look for, okay, where is this angel in Earth's history, and when does he catch up with John to say, okay, this is the stuff that's going to happen in the future. Now, this angel makes it clear that I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the prostitute. In other words, this is going to happen in the future. This whole chapter deals with events after John wrote Revelation. The kings of the world have committed adultery with her, and the people who belong to this world have been drunk by the wine of her immortality. Now, you see, there's two different types of wine. There's the wine of immortality. There's the wine that has to do with the sins, and then once they get all filled up with this, and then at the end, when they're thrown into the wine press after the judgment, you can see the blood is so high, it's just ridiculous. But that's all symbolic, seeing it flow through the streets. And now the angel is explaining exactly what those sins were. So the angel took me in the spirit into the wilderness, where I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and blasphemies against God were written all over it. Now, people like to try to put their own spins and interpretations on the wilderness, but in this time, we're going to take a look at what wilderness are they talking about at this point in Earth's history, if this is being fulfilled. And the second thing we're going to look at is, does this chapter explain what the wilderness is, just like it explains what a lot of these symbols are? The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. In her hand she had a gold goblet full of obscenities and the impurities of immorality. In other words, John is being re-emphasized. The point that, these are all the sins that brought the world to an end, that God really had no choice. A mysterious name was written on her forehead: Babylon, the great mother of all prostitutes and obscenities in the world. In other words, she is so proud of what she's doing, she's not even trying to hide it. Remember when we look back at Revelation 13, the devil was depicted as a beast, as a leopard trying to hide, and the whole chapter just, explained how the devil's going to try to hide, devil's trying to hide behind statues, symbols, everything. Well, this woman, look at how she's dressed. She's all dressed up in purple and wearing gold and precious gems and pearls and everything. It kind of reminds you of a vision of, Satan was clothed in gems and jewels when he was in heaven, and now it's like Satan is promising this woman everything that he had in heaven. It's as if the devil's trying to convince them that, I had all this stuff and I can give it to you too. That was the devil's deception in heaven, that, I like the things I got, but I can get more. I could see that she was drunk with the blood of God's holy people who were witnesses for Jesus. Does this say that she's killing these people and they're all dying and all that stuff? That's happened throughout history. It's happened even before John wrote Revelation. So it's nothing new, and that continues on to the end. The physical murder of Jesus' people, of God's people, it's been happening since Cain and Abel, and it continues, but it takes so many different forms, and that's what we got to do. We got to be careful not to get locked into someone's interpretation, that this is the only interpretation and this is the way it's got to be. Believe me, I stared at her in complete amazement. In other words, yeah, John can see her. She's all showy. She wants to draw attention. Okay, you know the type of woman. That's the type of symbol that John is being shown. Why are you so amazed? The angel asked. I will tell you the mystery of this woman and the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns on which she sits. The beast he saw was once alive but isn't now, and yet he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. So basically, coming out of one grave and going into another, I mean, that's really not too wise. But this sentence right here is illustrating in the simplest form the entire life of this beast. And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life before the world was made, will be amazed at the appearance of the beast who had died. In other words, they're going to be drawn to this beast, like a moth is drawn to the flame. And so, take a look at it. So, here's the woman, purple and scarlet, sitting on a beast, all dressed up with all these golden jewels. You know, the things of the world that attract the people with not a whole lot of brains, or who don't know what we're supposed to be telling them. This calls for a mind with understanding. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. So here we've got 2 things that they represent. They represent hills, and they also represent kings. And I should actually highlight this one. I really shouldn't take the time of trying to highlight this when I'm trying to do a study, but okay, so I highlighted with yellow, but it should be brown like the rest of them. And we got to look at this repetition that we're seeing. We're seeing this repetition: world, world, Babylon, world, 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 and hills. Wrong color, but just pretend it's brown. 5 kings have already fallen. Okay, that was before John's time. 5 of the kings have already fallen. And we can probably trace them back. There's been a lot of good studies that cover that. The 6th now reigns in John's time, who was ruling the world. That gives us a starting point if you're in the prophecy, and if time means more to you than just understanding what the prophecy is saying. And the 7th is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. Okay, and this is where there's a million guesses, because this is after John's time. Did it already happen, or are we living through it, or is it still in the future? The scarlet beast that was, but is no longer, is the 8th king. Now here we go with this word scarlet, and I should be able to, oh man, I hope I can click on this thing. It's a little hard to get this thing. No, that's not what I wanted. Anyway, I was going to make it red, but it's too hard with this big green dot here. The scarlet beast that was, but is no longer, is the 8th king. So don't forget, after the 7th king, and everybody wants to guess at what the 7th king is and tells you what the 7th king is. Oh yeah, if they read the next line, there's an 8th king. He is like the other 7, and he too is headed for destruction. Well, this is the main point that they're trying to do. Let's look at this stuff, because the people that this beast is headed to eternal destruction, and so are the people that follow. And the kings, the leaders of the nations of the world, we already know that. Now you know where to show people in Revelation. It's in Revelation 17. The 10 horns of the beast are 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. Is this, 10 kings all at the same time, or 10 kings at 10 different events throughout world history since John's time. We got to consider all these things. They will all agree to give him their power and authority. Him. In other words, you're talking about the beast. Okay, we know that. Basically, they're just going to be pawns in the devil's hands. All right? Together, they will go to war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will defeat them because he is Lord of all lords and King of kings, and his called and chosen and faithful ones will be with him. Okay, so we already read about that war in the last chapter. So the angel just took John back to what he just saw. He just saw that war. Jesus comes down, defeats them. There really is no battle, but it goes rather quick. Then the angel said to me, the waters where the prostitute is ruling represent masses of people of every nation and language. Okay, so you got to include everyone. See how the Bible interprets its own symbols? The scarlet beast and its 10 horns all hate the prostitute. They will strip her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her remains with fire. So this prostitute, no matter who she is, and we're going to look at and identify the prostitute in just a moment here, all the leaders hate the prostitute. For God has put a plan into their minds, a plan that will carry out his purposes. They will agree to give their authority to the scarlet beast, and so the words of God will be fulfilled. Now, pretty much you can see the woman and the beast are working together. Okay. And the woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over the kings of the world. Now here it kind of shifts, but it repeats and it shifts again. Now all of a sudden, instead of being hills and all of this other stuff, but she's already gotten Babylon written on her head, and the great city that rules over the kings of the world. Is it Babylon? No, it's not physical Babylon. Babylon is a symbol. We got to really study to get into it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the details that just about everybody misses. Okay, and this woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over the kings of the world. How come God didn't say Babylon again? It says great city. Okay, so you got to ask, okay, here's this repetition. And we're seeing this repetition. We're seeing world, wilderness, Babylon. And then down here we're seeing city and world again. And of course we had hills over here that highlighted the wrong color. It's yellow in here someplace. But look at this. Why is all of a sudden this word city? We see this repetition, and we got to ask, now, how come God didn't just mention Babylon again? Because if he keeps on repeating Babylon, he's drawing our attention to Babylon. But for the most part, we're seeing world being repeated. World, 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 and world again, and then all of a sudden it's a city that rules over the world. Okay, questions like this. This is how the Holy Spirit fills you with a question. So when we see a question like that, we do what? We flip over to the King James. And I got to flip over so I can see my windows here. And we're going to go over to this last verse. See how quick we can do this with a computer? And we're going to take a look at city, which is 4172. We just click on 4172, and 4172 says Polis, probably from the same as G4171. Well, this is pretty easy because we just click the word right above it, 4171, and Palenos means warfare. So, in this particular case, John used a specific Greek word that was interpreted city that was taken from a word that meant warfare. Okay. And what was that 4172, 4171 we took a look at? It's interpreted the great city, great warfare. In other words, we got to be looking. This gives us a clue to identify this woman. Let's not look at the word city and concentrate on it like the world does. Let's concentrate on the warfare, the actual actions. That kind of narrows it down. See how it narrows it down? Or perhaps 4183. 4183. We're going to click on 4183 here. And get this, 4183. Polos, including the forms from the alternative polos, singular, which in any respect, or plural, many, neuter, singular, as adverb, largely neuter. It's not really giving us a definition. So what does this word polos actually mean? Well, let's look it up on a dictionary on the internet, see what P-O-L-L-O-S actually means. Anybody know? I think there's some people out there who already know. This is going to bring us P-O-L-L-O-S. Okay, so it's a noun. The plural, polis. So singular is polis. Number one, it means a chicken. So does this chicken identify the city and the woman? Okay, number two, slang. In Mexico, it means a laborer who pays to be smuggled or guided over the border into the U.S. illegally. Okay, think about that for a moment. Did God wait until today when we're seeing this open border where all these immigrants coming in causing all these problems? Basically, they're using the excuse of crime and everything else and the immigrants in Chicago to create socialist state-owned businesses and stores so they can control everything. And what about New York? In New York, they're talking about, it's okay to, these immigrants are just trying to survive, so, just cooperate with them, with their prostitution and everything else. Forget that, there's an entity, a power behind them, the cartel that's controlling them and all this other stuff. Is this woman representing the cartel or the people behind prostitution as a whole? I mean, realistically, did you ever expect the Bible to identify the invasion from Mexico that we're seeing today? I mean, to me, this is just amazing. So, take it for what it is. Take it, leave it, discuss it, leave a comment. Do whatever you do with this stuff. So, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and have a great day. Whatever you do, don't stop praying, and don't stop reading the Bible. You never know what you're going to stumble upon. And when you do, share it with the world, because that's why we're getting this information.